In 1941, a 25-year-old prodigy erupted onto Hollywood's dazzling scene, with a film so groundbreaking it would eventually be revered as the greatest ever created. Orson Welles appeared fated to command Tinseltown for generations. But in mere years, this visionary genius turned into an industry pariah, blacklisted, resentful, and cast off to Europe as a banished creator. How did the architect of Citizen Kane evolve into Hollywood's starkest tragic emblem? When Orson Welles disembarked at Union Station in 1939, the movie world had encountered nothing like him. At 24, he brimmed with the assurance of a Broadway titan and the infamy of his nationwide war of the world's radio panic. Studios showered him with offers, eager to capture the electric ingenuity that trailed him. RKO Pictures bestowed the extraordinary on a novice, absolute creative authority, encompassing final edit, casting veto, and carte blanche for any tale his imagination conjured. Executives, dazed by his broadcast sensation, figured they'd landed a jackpot. They couldn't foresee they'd loosed a radiant, ravaging tempest into their orderly domain. Welles swept in alongside his Mercury Theater ensemble, a fierce legion of stage loyalists from New York. They traversed Hollywood like triumphant visionaries, gazes sparkling with potential, spirits ignited by radical aspirations. The young auteur's dream was heady. Films that would stretch limits, provoke viewers, and hoist cinema to exalted artistry. Yet amid those sweet inaugural moments, subtle portents danced like phantoms. Welles had always scorned others' edicts, and Hollywood, for all its allure, rested on ironclad codes, a profit engine churning safe diversions, not always profound works. Still, Welles, heady with his brilliance and contractual liberty, trusted he could merge profit and poetry. His poise was captivating, nearly ethereal. He'd dominate studio powwows with resonant timbre, the same dramatic force behind his radio mantra. Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? He never dreamed it would soon echo his own Tinseltown odyssey. From a makeshift warehouse base, Welles forged his pinnacle, and his bane, Citizen Kane. Far beyond a mere picture, it was an onslaught against stale filmmaking. Each frame innovated, each portrayal pulsed, each choice aimed to dismantle 1940s complacency. Partnering with cinematographer Greg Toland, Welles birthed enduring methods, profound depth of field, eccentric perspectives, and luminous shadows that pierced the spirit. The story's mosaic, woven from diverse recollections in nonlinear bursts, was so bold that doubters fretted over audience comprehension, yet the core narrative sowed his ruined seeds. Citizen Kane traced a media overlord's merciless ascent to isolated void, a stark shadow of William Randolph Hearst, the era's press colossus. Welles grasped the gamble, but charged ahead. As reels spun and intensities soared, he urged his troupe, Joseph Cotton, Dorothy Cummingore, the full Mercury cohort, toward the sublime. The set thrummed with arcane fervor, that elusive aura when creators sense eternity in their grasp. But as glory coalesced, gloom encroached. Hearst's formidable sway network roused to this audacious reflection of its realm. Lines buzzed, levers pulled, and reprisals' gears ground into motion. Welles, enraptured by his artistry, overlooked the bullseye he'd etched on himself, a mark that shadowed his days. The second Hearst beheld Citizen Kane, he divined Welles's audacity. The elder press lord, forged in newsprint and clout, spied his biography in Charles Foster Kane's lamentable spiral. This transcended homage. It was a celluloid execution masked as amusement, and Hearst recoiled. His counterstrike was immediate and unyielding. Via his empire of dailies, glossies, and airwaves, a synchronized assault demolished the movie and its midwife. Venomous scribes like Luella Parsons assailed Welles's morals, maneuvers, and Hollywood birth. Abruptly, the fledgling faced America's premier media juggernaut's unbridled rage. Hearst's vendetta burrowed beyond barbs. Covertly, he menaced exhibitors against bookings, menaced backers with ostracism for any Kane-friendly house. His grip coiled through showbiz's veins, constricting daily. Welles, oddly invigorated, proclaimed in fervent discourse, "This isn't a personal strike at Mr. Hearst," his tone rich with stagecraft. "It's my quest for cinema's zenith." Yet confidence spied his shift, a steely rim, a guarded ire absent before. Lines formed, lone savant, brandishing craft and creed, versus a colossus molding minds and shattering fates. David met Goliath, but here the giant clutched every press and transmitter nationwide. From that inaugural Hearst critique, The end loomed, unspooling over years. Citizen Kane premiered in May 1941 not as a thunderclap, but a murmur, unbefitting its splendor. Critics exalted it near divinely, artistry incarnate, revolutionary force, cinema's dawn, yet patrons shunned it ruinously. The eventual Pantheon jewel netted under $1.6 million globally, hardly covering outlays. Welles savored the bite. He'd birthed transcendence, boundary-busting elixir, only for apathy to greet it. He'd prowl by barren auditoriums, beholding mobs chase fluff, tunes, laughs, unprobing bomb. The flop transcended career bruise. It gouged the soul, unhealing. Youth's guileless creed, that merit summons masses, shattered against truth. Trade eclipsed talent, hype outranked heart, archeo brass-eyed ledgers with mounting dread. They'd indulged this rogue with rare latitude, repaid by a gem too luminous for ledgers. Murmurs stirred, too lofty for lucre? Profitable prospects nil? The bliss faded, Hollywood's ledger logic clamped down. Hearst's stranglehold endured, raids on bold bookers, ink turned foe or phantom. It smacked of cabal, Titans throttling a virtuoso's orphan opus, exquisite yet spurned in a crass cosmos. Reeling from Kane's tepid tide, Welles hurled into his follow-up with fevered zeal, an artist's bid for vindication. The Magnificent Ambersons, drawn from Booth Tarkington's yarn, sought thaw, intimate depth with wider lure, integrity intact. Instead, it schooled the system's savagery on a stellar soul. Welles infused it with essence, etching a wistful dirge for America's ornate twilight. The patrician lineage's languid unravel, kin to his own gilded vanished boyhood. He fathomed the psyche's burden in era's eclipse. Turmoil, dogged inception. RKO, singed by Kane's shortfall, curbed his sway. Funds strangled choices, intrusions routine. World War II yanked aides to arms. Then, a Spectre decision. Mid-cut, Welles fled to South America for a federal dock, deeming Rio edits viable via transatlantic dispatches. Cataclysm ensued, bearing his craft's innocence and rift from studio grit. Astride oceans, RKO commandeered, excising an hour's weave, axing threads, grafting a rushed uplift that flouted the elegy. Confronting the carcass, Welles dissolved in tears. Not mere woe, but raw desecration's sting, staining all afterlives. BY 1943, susurrus swelled to thunder, thunder to doom. Welles spelled hazard. Suits whispered verdicts in layers like cabal rights. The erstwhile fair-haired prodigy now loomed costly curse, unbending seer in bargains bizarre. His indictment glared to receipt rulers. Twin raves, twin busts, vanishing amid vivisection, swelling hubris per reverse, a zeal admitting no metal. In Hollywood's psyche, wunderkind warped to parable in half a decade. The shunned stage shadow, no ink, no decree, just zeal's slow frost, portal's sly seal, apathy's mesh, crueler for silence. Rings unanswered, repasts deferred eternal, ventures vaporized. Welles felt the chill in civic chill. Once mesmerized moguls now antsy, curt, conversation's colors. Agents thinned, scribes shelved him as stale. For an ego's epicenter, the hush howled. Walls hemming. Welles held rebel poise, intoning undulled fire on unyielding muse. No pandering to dull wits, blind that purity priced his pitch. The wonder boy twigged tardily. Art bowed to avarice always. Forget, and foundered Hollywood's portals bolted. Welles, laudable lensman, stood barred from U.S. reels. Remedy? Banishment. To Europe, then roving hunts for coin to stoke frantic fancies. Decades drift followed, luminaries scavenging global edges. Europe bore his baggage, testy, lavish, tardy, yet prized his spark. Some wagered where studios wouldn't. In co-op gloam and indie straits, his epic unfolded. Yield, the lady from Shanghai, Macbeth, Othello, genius stamped, compromise cleft. Scant shekels birthed cunning, illusions via glass, haze, sly sightlines. But funding's fray-etched age, laced dash with despair. Kin saw metamorphosis. Youth's glee lingered, laced with world's wry whip. Lone flare fell short. Ploy, persona, play proved peers to sight. Too late lore spared no stateside salvage, but shaped sequelae. Irony seared. Revolution's sire, now importuning for pittance in odd climes. Each toil of fray, win won. Reverse a RKO reminisce. 1958, Kane, 2 score, Beckon last studio stake. Touch of evil, system-spun noir apotheosis affirming flair amid fracture. Taint, habitual clash and seed. Chance serendipitous. Heston, for humdrum caper lead. Touted Welles to Universal for gloss on B-Fair. They consented, blind to brewing bedlam. Welles transmuted tripe to abyss. Border grit, musing graft. Bias, might's misuse. As obese, ethics eviscerated Hank Quinlan, he unmasked Ire's husk, funneling grudge into self-sabotage shade. Vintage vortex, pages purged, sweeps scripted labyrinthine, troop tax terminal. The heralded 3-minute ingress, a seamless crane weave of blast and braid, hailed his once futurist fire, suits shuddered at shade. Labyrinth lore, ethic haze, dour drift, all shunned. Redux, Welles' ward for wholeness, gainst Bleach Brigade. Evil S sheer skirmish, his terminal tussle, as ever, yield no vice vexed Welles more than unslaked flaw hunt. The Transcendence Forge, collaboration's foe in Time Antil's trade. Takes tallied, endless. Utterances honed his hue. Tech tuned to torment's tick. Saintly stand, yet suicidal in senses siege. Lore of his lash mixed marvel and moan. Multiples for mind's mirage. Halts for quibble on cue or curio. Filmmaking? Right, not rush, unbowed by banality's bind. Theater thrived thus, rehearsals reap redeeming. Film? Fees felt fortunes, lags lashed links. Brass beheld bleed as bratty binge, not bard's bond. Such scruples spring? Prodigy's provenance, bay brilliance, vast eternal. Adequate alien, all apex. Now, competence's crown galled, adapt? Nay, kin fretted zeal's zealot turn. Glee's glow dimmed to dread's draft. Ventures? Valor trials, bends? Being's bite. Greatness graft, ground him guardian of his own granite gaze.